this next comment was nonsense, but I have to comment on nonsense. So Kenny Smith's a nice guy. He's a basketball player, very good. He's on a show everybody likes with Barkley and Ernie and Shaq. And he was talking about, it's LeBron, not top 10 and stuff. I don't even want to get into that, but just play the bite from him. Okay, I'm not even going to argue that. That's nonsense. Let's go to this, though. It is so much easier to score for these players now. That's interesting. So I went this morning and I looked at the top 20 highest individual scoring games in league history. They should all be now, right? I mean, it's so easy to just drop 50. Only 2 are in the last 15 years. Kobe, he was good, and Devin Booker, who had a good night. 2 of all the highest scoring games ever. 2 are in the last 15 years, but it's so easy to score. By the way, Wilt scored at will in the 60s. Kareem scored at will in the 80s, and Michael Jordan scored at will in the 90s. Outside of James Harden now, if a guy drops 40 regularly, this is like, whoa, he's hot. With Harden, it's like he gets 36, 37. And even he struggles in the postseason. Folks, no reasonable person would deny that athletes today are taller, faster, more rested, private planes, better nutrition, better trainers. It's now much more of a global sport, so you're getting the world's best. That means you're confusing easier to score with they make it look easier to score. That's the difference. LeBron makes it look easier. Dirk Nowitzki, Anthony Davis. These players are so good now, we think, nobody plays defense. Out of your mind. Everybody's playing defense. You can't stop anybody. Steve Kerr's got my all-time favorite line on this. Folks, it used to be in the NBA that if you were a center or a big and you scored a basket, you would run down on the defensive end and just wait for the big guy to just drop right next to you. Now the big guy can dribble. The big guy can shoot a 3. Giannis and Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid now can shoot 3s. So the big fella, I got to chase the centers around the court. I'm chasing guys around the court. I used to be able to be like, all right, big fella, come and lean on me. That's how easy it was to defend centers. And only one guy had the sky hook. Everybody else was kind of offensively limited, right? There wasn't a lot of skill at center. Everybody can dribble. Everybody can pass. Denver's center is the best passer on the team. We're confusing that it's so easy to score. No, everybody makes it look easy to score because it's a global game. Players are better coached. It used to be you flew commercial. Now, think about this. I'm not joking when I say this. In the 70s, you could have gotten on a United Airlines flight and Wilt was sitting next to you. Players played games, went home, had a few cocktails, got up at 4, drove to the airport, were on a 6 a.m. flight. They'd fly into a city, take a nap, and play. They were exhausted. They just mailed it in all the time. Players now are on private jets. There's fewer back-to-backs. They've got better nutrition. They're more rested. They have better trainers. They are ready to play every night. I regularly watch games in the regular season, and I'm like, this is a playoff game. Guys are after it. It's not easier to score. Everybody just makes it look easy. The game is never, you don't have to like NBA basketball. Analytically now, it's a lot of threes. I used to like the layering of basketball a little more. But if you don't think this is the most skilled league that it's ever been, you're not watching the game. It's like NFL quarterbacks. They're so much better than they were 15 years ago. So much better. Yeah, it's Kenny Smith averaged about 18 points a game. And that's about what Kenny Smith would average today. You know why? Because if Kenny Smith was only as good as Kenny Smith, his coach would be like, stop shooting. I got other guys who can shoot. My center. Guys who, and by the way, here's my favorite stat. Look at this one. The average NBA team this year scored 111 points. Okay, let's go to the 80s. Oh, wait. The average NBA team in 1985 scored 111 points. Okay, let's go to the 60s. The average NBA team scored 115 points. But it's so much easier to score now. It's just, Wilt Chamberlain was going up against 6'8" centers. I'm not joking. The Celtics had a center named Dave Cowens. He was good. He was 6'8". Ben Simmons is a guard. He's 6'10 and a half. Wilt Chamberlain never had to worry about a center going, bruh, give me the ball. Whoo, 3. Wilt just sat there, blocked his little guy's shot. You got to be kidding me. Have Wilt running it. Can you imagine Kareem Abdul-Jabbar now having to run around the court chasing Anthony Davis? It'd be exhausting. We romanticize the past, don't we? We just, everything was better. The New York Knicks, we have romanticized a New York Knicks team that had 8 guys that couldn't shoot a jumper. That team had so little skill. Even their guards weren't great shooters. NBA basketball, better players, more rested, better nutrition, better coaching, better scouting, better players, better passers, better ball handlers, better shooters, better by a mile. And those guys can all play defense and are better and more nimble and quicker and can defend and have more tape and then scout you more. And good Lord, folks. You know, it's so funny. I was sitting there last night talking to my friend who's a restaurateur. And I said, you know, you've been doing this he did it in St. Louis and he did it in Orange County, does it in Los Angeles. He's had restaurants in Beverly Hills. And I said, what's the secret? Most restaurants don't make it, right? Like 75% of restaurants don't make it and almost none make it for 20 years. And I'm like, how? And he said, well, you just got to stay current. You can't have the same menu for 30 years. You can't see food the same way you did in the 70s and 80s. Sometimes to sports fans, I want to say, can we all stay more current? The stuff now is the best we've ever seen. Now, there are sports that aren't as good, like college basketball, for example. It's not as good today. Why? Because kind of the culture's changed. If you're really good, you don't want to go to the NBA. You don't want to go to college basketball, or you go for a year. So it used to be that Patrick Ewing would come back as a sophomore, and he would come back as a junior. I mean, you had literally Georgetown, Houston. You had NBA guys coming back again and again and again. College basketball was better in the 70s and 80s. You just had NBA guys up and down. You had NBA guys not even starting on some really, really high-end college basketball teams. I mean, they would be the first guy off the bench, and they would get tryouts in the NBA. That's not the sport. But outside of that, virtually everything is better today. The depth of the PGA Tour is insane. There's 300 amazing golfers in America. People always say, God, Bobby Jones and Jack Nicklaus. They maybe had 1 or 2 rivals. Outside of Tiger Woods, have you ever noticed? You can't really dominate the sport anymore. Every other year, it's, Rory's the guy. Now he's not. Brooks Koepka is the guy. Oh, now he's not. Jordan Spieth is the guy. Now he's not. Because there's so many great players out there. Everything's getting better. People don't want to see it. People want to be rigid, but everything outside of college basketball is better today. NFL, college football, quarterbacks, NBA players, shortstops, pitchers. You know, people used to brag about Babe Ruth. I used to laugh about Babe Ruth. He literally faced roofers and sandwich makers. I mean, Babe Ruth, there were 8 teams. I mean, Babe Ruth, guys they were plumbers when the season ended. They weren't working out in the off season. They were fixing my pipes in my kitchen if I would have been alive. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.